What's up, Kung Fu fighting Thrash Pandas? It's ya boy Slayer here. Well, now that I'm back for 2022 after a wee little hiatus, I feel like torturing myself again with some horrid games. Specifically of the fighting genre. Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Smash Bros., Street Fighter Champion Edition, Killer Instinct, Street Fighter 2 Redundancy Edition. There is a bevy of great games in this genre, but on the other hand, this genre also holds some of the worst games I have ever played. For every Smash Bros. Brawl comes a Shaq Fu to stink up the place with its torturous gameplay. Let's start off with the most famous shitty fighting game, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy, that is. The arcade and Sega Genesis version of Mortal Kombat is an irrefutable classic like no other. In many ways, it was kind of the GTA of the early 90s. What now is fairly tame violence shocked people, and even whiny politicians tried to ban it. The only thing it needs now is a plasticky looking remaster with a bevy of glitches and atrocious character models. I kid you. But in all seriousness, the Game Boy version of Mortal Kombat makes me want to jump into a bed of spikes. They tried to recreate the graphical style of the home console and arcade versions, but that just doesn't gel well with the 8-bit hardware of the Game Boy, and it ends up looking like a Jackson Pollock painting as a result. And on top of that, a frame rate liable to give anyone who plays it a headache in minutes. No joke, playing this game actually gave me a migraine. And with a mere 2 face buttons, the controls are like swimming in quicksand with cement shoes tied to your feet. Sorry, but I'd take the sweaty Super Nintendo version over this failure any day of the week. Shaq Fu, a game so bad that there was actually an entire website dedicated to destroying every last copy of this game. Well, too bad for them, emulation exists. Let's just hope Nintendo doesn't strike down this disaster piece. The game starts off with Shaq in downtown Tokyo stumbling across a Kung Fu dojo. Okay, look, first of all, Kung Fu is Chinese, not Japanese. Did Hank Hill write this game?
So, are you Chinese or Japanese?
In some ways, this corporate pandering game about Shaquille O'Neal Kung Fu fighting isn't actually as bad as people say. For one, it actually looks pretty good, with some rather nice sprite work and backgrounds. Aside from Shaq, there's also some other characters that don't have anything to do with basketball, but they all look fine. But that takes a backseat to the hotbed of molten diarrhea that are the controls. Once again, it feels like I'm swimming in quicksand here. Shaq Fu commits the major sin of having jump assigned to up on the D-pad, and just trying to win a fight is a semi-arduous task. Did I mention that EA published this turd? Oh boy, you have a long way to fall. And now my dog is barking, because fucking Shaq Fu is that offensive, even dogs hate it. Shrek Fairy Tale Freakdown. I remember talking about this game briefly in an old video from a few years back, only for the AVGN to make a video on it later down the line. Now, to be honest, AVGN's take on the game was rather meh in my opinion. No offense to AVGN, I just found it to be one of his weaker reviews. Shrek Fairy Tale Fuck Up belongs in a fucking outhouse. Unlike Onions, this game has no layers, and a mere 15 minutes of gameplay time. You know a game is bad when it thinks American is a language. Granted, America has such a propensity for poor literacy that American might as well be separate from that bloody jolly old English, you gobsmacking yank. But I digress. Sure, this game has most of your faves from the original Shrek movie, but poor controls and a campaign that can be completed within 10 minutes or less make for a game that shouldn't even cost $5. You'd be better off just throwing $5 off a bridge. Shrek Fairy Tale Freakdown, get back in the fucking outhouse. Tattoo Assassin. Okay, just a note going forward from here, I refer to tattoo assassins in the singular form instead of its intended plural form throughout this review. I'm not gonna BS y'all, I got lazy and just didn't read the damn name right. Oh well, I could have messed up way worse in all honesty. An unreleased game with creepy guys in diapers, women farting fire, and naked men. Ooh. This game boasted of having over 2,000 fatalities, putting Mortal Kombat to shame and then some. But the end result we see here in this beta prototype, yeah, it's not great. It's trying way too hard to be funny, with fatalities that turn people into paintings and the RMS Titanic falling onto people. It's like Mortal Kombat through the lens of someone who is baked out of their ever-loving minds. Actually, you know what? I'd say that this is so bad it's good. Yeah, it's dumb as hell and quantity over quality, like the Gran Turismo 6 of fighting games, but there's a charm in its nonsense and nudity. This is the reverse Shaq Fu, a bad fighting game that's funny because of how bad it is. If you want to see it in all of its glory, there are some ROMs of the unreleased prototype floating around the internet for you to enjoy. Maybe bring along some reefer while you're at it too. So, Mortal Kombat on Game Boy was like having Jackson Pollock splatter paint in your eyes, but how does it brother Street Fighter 2 fare on Game Boy? Well, it does look better with acceptable sprites and backgrounds for Game Boy standards, so it's better than Game Boy Mortal Kombat on that alone, but that's sadly drowned out by one of the worst frame rates in all of gaming. Just for comparison, as a kid I owned the Game Boy version of Killer Instinct. While containing some rather crappy looking character sprites, it performed very well for a Game Boy fighter. Street Fighter 2 in comparison just hurts my eyes with its slideshow frame rate. The Game Boy downports of GTA were better than this, and you know how much I hate those versions. Yeah, let's just say there's no reason to play this version of Street Fighter 2 anymore. And last and certainly the least terrible of the bunch, Way of the Warrior. Made by Naughty Dog prior to their megalithic Crash Bandicoot trilogy, this game, much like Tattoo Assassin, is just a blatant Mortal Kombat clone. It seems there were quite a few of those in the early to mid-90s. Oh, how the gaming landscape never changes, from Mortal Kombat clones to platformer mascots to Spunk Gargle Wee Wee and Fortnite pandering. There's always gonna be a shitstorm plaguing the cultural zeitgeist. It's basically a mediocre Mortal Kombat clone, with the only thing it really excels at is a soundtrack containing white zombie songs, which is pretty damn cool. Licensed soundtracks were barely in their infancy when this game came along, so it deserves some credit for that. But otherwise, skip this and go play Naughty Dog's other games. And now that I think of it, a Crash Bandicoot fighting game spin-off doesn't sound half bad. Imagine if that ever happened. It'd be sweet. Well, that was a dreadful experience, but I'll tell you what isn't a dreadful experience, my brand new webcomic series, Thrash Panda. Starring my various original characters in a rock band, Thrash Panda is a culmination of nearly 5 years of ideas packed into one hell of a furry webcomic. I currently have the first 2 episodes out, with some short, more comedic episodes also in the works, soon to be released. So be sure to check that out. The link is in the description below.